is it made me see things that were right in front of me. It made me see the pain of my wife. It made me see how tired she was. It made me see how I wasn't showing up, how I wasn't rising. Welcome, Life in Abundance, episode 13. We're back at it. We got a new look, as you can tell. We're stepping it up. Season 2 now. We kind of figured this out over the last 12 podcasts. And so, we're back at it. And we have some big news for the both of us. We left you last time. I was going into coaching men. And now my wife, Bree, is...
Yeah, stepping into the same world, but very different. So after an event we attended in July in Dana Point, we've been taking part in these classes actually every month for the last 9 months or so. And Mark longer than myself, actually. I have been in these classes for 9 months. And in July, it was made very clear to me that my position in the salon needed to shift. And the way that I served my community, my co-stylists, my clients, and ultimately my family needed to change completely. And not just change, but I had to go through a complete life transformation to actually do what I know God called me to do. So that was a really hard realization to come to, actually. And I felt this heaviness all year long. Like I was called in this room with amazing stylists. It's, I want to say salon owners, actually. They are true female entrepreneurs. And I felt like I kept telling my coach, I'm not sure why I'm in this room, but I know it's something greater than hair. I know that it's something greater than my role as a salon owner. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is yet, but I know that I've been called to be in this room for a greater reason, and I'm going to be obedient and stay here, even though I felt like in the direction the class was coaching people wasn't necessarily even the direction I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. But in the midst of it, my eyes were open to so many other opportunities in which I got to serve this group of people that I was so lucky to call not just my friends, but peers and other like-minded entrepreneurs that were pursuing the same thing, whatever their role was, whether it be going into coaching or training or owning a powerhouse salon or building a large book of business as a stylist. We all had similar targets.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because you fought it for a couple months.
Yeah.
Like we had a collision on stage with our coach Garrett, and I knew right away what I needed to do. And that was like at the end of July. And I went into coaching full time as of September, so a month. And then Bree was in class with Garrett and we go over our monthly goals for our business. And he looks at Bree and goes, like, what's your goal? And she's like, I want to shave my head and burn it all down.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're in the perfect spot. And I remember we were driving home that night, and I was waiting for her in the parking lot. And she comes out, I think it was September, maybe. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, I'm going into coaching. I was like,
no, I think I said.
She goes, I'm stopped doing hair.
Yeah, this is my last year of doing hair.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. It was the weirdest thing. I had this peace over it where I wasn't like freaked out. I wasn't panicked. It was like God has called us to do this, and he is all these years of what we've done in business and what we went through in marriage and kids. It's like he's preparing us for something. Mm-hmm. And that's what we both have felt. We've always had a passion for people. We've always had a passion for marriages, especially. Even when our marriage wasn't that great, we've always had a passion for it. And I think that's what really why it sucked you into it, why you're not going to do hair anymore.
Yeah, it definitely has an energy that lured me in stronger than I could ever resist. And I did try and resist the date so much with God that I was making negotiations. I mean, how comical that I think I'm in charge, right? But I'm like, okay, at the end of next year, because when I made this decision, it wasn't even like I made the decision. The decision had already been made. I just came to the reality that, okay, Bree, stop struggling and surrender and go. So
what's funny is our coach kept telling her, like, just go. Just go. And she's like, well, I don't know what to do. He's like, it doesn't matter. Just go.
I'm like, I don't have a logo. He says, who gives a shit about the logo? Yeah. Just go. There's souls to save. And it was so true because you get wrapped up in all the minor details that nobody cares about you guys but you. And I'm like, well, my website's not officially launched. I don't even have my true offer. He's like, you have your offer. It's leading from where you live. Now go. I'm like, okay, how many times do I have to hear him say it for me to do it? But it was funny because, no, it's not funny. It was just a really hard reality for me to do a self-check when I came to the realization that, okay, this is my last year doing hair. I kept saying at the end of next year, at the end of, the summer, at the end, I kept negotiating all these dates with God, which really were not up to me. It was not in my control. And as I had done my numbers for this class, we turn in our numbers, our return and report every month. I made the most money in my career than I had ever made that in my life. And if I stay on that track, I will hit my goal of being $1 million stylist within that year. And that was a goal I set for myself. That I was just like, I'm going to prove it to myself that I can make $1 million doing this. And I don't own a commission salon, so it's very rare that you hear that productivity from a salon that is a booth rental salon, for those of you who don't know. So I was like, well, I just changed the game for everyone in my business if I can hit this number. And then God quickly reminded me, that was your number, not my number. Mm-hmm. That was your path, not my path. And I had to give that up because I had it in my mind that I was meant to make this $1 million salon, and I was on a 5-year plan to get there. And November of 2024 would be my 5-year mark. If I continued on my number pace the way that I was, I would have hit that number. And I just had to quickly realize, okay, God, I'll embrace a new number. And guess what? That was so much bigger. And I know in the way that I've been called to serve women in the female space is far beyond my salon chair. And as long as I live behind that chair, I'm holding myself back and resisting my true calling, which is to step in that female space and lead women through the place that I live. And that is exactly what my coach has led me to do. To come to that realization and to let go the things that I thought were in my control and surrender to what God's will is. And as soon as I did that, I had such freedom and peace in the moment that I was resisting for so long, and just came to realize, no, what he has for me is so much better. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that Mark was in a headspace, I mean, really, truly, that he has never been in our entire marriage. In 17 years, this would have been something that Mark would have flew off the handlebars. He would have just been like, no, I think you're crazy. And when I said it to him, he's like, okay, let's do it. And there was just a peace and a calmness about it. As we drove home that night, we had 5 hours in the car to drive and talk about it. And we have couples therapy. It's funny, right after I get out of class, on the first hour and a half drive home, we do a couples therapy Zoom call. And so in that call, it was just talking about how you crowd each other's space. Like the things that you didn't like about the other, or things that you were attracted to about the other, how over time you seem to be unattracted to them. But the truth is you crowd that space in their life. And it's time to get crowded again. And for so long, Mark and I feel like we lived disconnected. And for the first time in our marriage, we were so deeply connected that something like that would have normally lit the car on fire, gave us such a peace to drive and just talk it through and what that looked like for us, and to stop resisting and just surrender it. So it was really an amazing moment in my life for me, really. And I think for us as a couple.
Yeah. I'm getting this coaching thing. You realize that you're not in control of anything.
It's so true.
That's the thing, is you do all these things every day to think that you're in control. If it's get up at a certain time, eat a certain way, go to work, make the money, kids, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, I'm in control. God's like, nope, we're going to go left. Yeah. I wasn't planning on going left.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm realizing more and more, is the more that you're able to submit to God. I read a verse in 2 Corinthians last week, and we did a baptism at our council, which is a meeting of all these men, and we baptized 5 guys. And
in the ocean.
And it was not something that we were wanting to do. One of the guys in my class, he was on a company jet the day before, and the landing gears were not working, so they had to fly around for a little bit. And he was texting his wife, his kids, and he found that God told him to text our coach Garrett, just to for thank him for what he's doing, and he led him back to God. And they had a crash landing. Everything was fine. But he came. He's like, I need to be baptized. So we did a baptism, and it was crazy. I read the verse that morning. It was, I'm gonna kind of butcher it, but it's, do not put your things in temporary things. Do not put your faith in temporary things. Put your things in the unseen, and that put your faith in the unseen, because those are eternal. And we're sitting there in Dana Point, and you're looking at this beautiful ocean and these big homes, and you put your faith sometimes in the things that you see and not the unseen. Mm-hmm. And that's been the biggest thing for me going into this coaching, is that, man, like, I'm doing something that is unseen. I'm putting my faith in something that is unseen, that is God. And it's terrifying, but there's also a big piece to it. Like with Bree saying, hey, I'm not going to do hair anymore. With me stepping away from training and stepping away from our incomes that we have a great life. But I see now that this life is so much bigger. This world is so much bigger of what God is wanting us to do. And I think that's why it's so hard for me and for Bree to be like, I really don't want to do this. It's kind of good right now. It's kind of comfortable. Yeah. But what is comfort, babe? What is comfort? Like, what does that do to you in life?
Well, it's beautiful, but nothing grows there. And for the longest time, I was so comfortable running my show and my program in the salon and doing my shadow students on Mondays and having co-stylists and watching them succeed and excel their goals and their numbers. But then I realized the box that I put myself in to be this $1 million stylist was only my box and not something that God called for me. And when I limit myself, I limit the amount of people and impact I have. And I had to let go of that $1 million stylist and think bigger. And when I put it in perspective of money, the money I can make coaching was 10 times greater. But for some reason, there was a fear there because it was the unknown. It was uncomfortable. It would require me to step out of this place of comfort where I knew so well. It was easy for me to produce money in the salon because I know that it's part of who I am. It's what I do. But coaching is something I have done all along, and I never realized it. And then as I came to know, like, wow, the impact I have in this room is pretty powerful. And I'm not saying or preaching anything different. It's the way I can deliver it with such certainty. It comes from knowing it so well because it's the place that I live. I know this well because I do this. This is who I am. This is who we are. And so I think there's just so much more credibility behind your word when you can coach someone from something that you personally have done. And I've told that to my team members. I'm never asking you to do anything that I personally haven't done or wouldn't do. Never. Because I know that there's great success that can come from this when you apply it in your life and you do not waver from it. Yeah. And we set for ourselves a very clear standard of how we were going to move forward. And we understood that there were going to be relationships that were then compromised. People aren't going to get this. Even telling my parents, okay, Dad, I know I said I'm going to be the $1 million stylist, but I had to reconsider my goals and my dreams, and now we're going to go a different direction. He's like, wait, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. And they were super like, I want to say supportive because they believe I can do anything I want to. But they were super hesitant at the same time because they're like, wait, what have been the last 20 years of you working so hard for? And my coach put it in such clear perspective for me. He says, hair was the gateway to your revolution beyond hair, which is re-gentry coaching. And the truth is just allowing God to move in me and me not even have to think about it. I just need to go in obedience. Mm-hmm. And as Mark has done that in taking the lead in this process, it has made it a lot less scary for me. And how much have I confided in you through coaching that I can tell you right now, I went 17 years of my marriage not confiding in Mark in business because I didn't want his input. But now when you invite someone to come alongside you, I'm anxious for his opinion. I even take his critiquing a little bit easier than I used to in the past because it's something we're doing together and we're learning through the process. But as we do this, we're witnessing lives change, people making money they never thought they were capable of, people getting connected in their marriage where they never even thought possible. And the reason why is because we have done that. We have found that for ourselves. And now we get to share that with the world, which is so powerful and such an incredible thing that God chose you to do. And what I had to come to realize is that God has something like that for everyone.
Yeah.
And how much we limit ourselves from fear and comfort to actually reach that full potential or tap into that fully.
Yeah. I mean, what I've gotten out of this so far in the short amount of time I've been doing it, it'll be 4 months at the end of the years, but I'm just seeing the value in people that they don't see. That's all that it is. And I mean, it's like I had a client sit in and he was going to sell one of his programs for $2,000. And I said, why don't you sell it for 10? And he's like, looked at me like, what? I said, you are worth it. And I said, okay, let's go down a little bit. Let's say 8. And we sold one already. And it was just things like that you're seeing people, you're seeing the value in people. And
you sold one in 24 hours.
Yeah. And like same thing with Bree. She had this girl come in and it was like she was charging $200-$300 and she sold 2 of them for a couple $1,000. Like same program. But it just, she saw the value in herself from digging into this, right? And that's where Bree and I, doing this coaching thing, we've seen the value in ourselves and we've seen what God truly wants for us in the big picture, like not just in the little small box that we think is like comfortable, we think is good, we think is great, but the actual, like, okay, let's take a step back and like, what does Mark and Bree really want in their body, in their being, in their balance, in their business? And the reason why we can have those conversations and not get mad is because we're both doing the work. We're both working on each other and know where we both want to go, not just Bree wants to go. And that was the biggest thing in our marriage. When you get in arguments about money or about whatever it is because I wasn't living a life of certainty. I wasn't showing up in discipline. And with this coaching, I have to become my number one asset. I got to become my number one client. And until that, it's not going to work out. So, what have you gotten in just a short time that like the last 2 weeks that you've been firing off this coaching business?
Yeah. So I think I launched like the Friday before Thanksgiving. So only a few weeks ago. And as you sit here and you get wrapped up in the logo and the website and the marketing and whatever, the truth is the easiest and best way to go about this is just talk to people and ask them questions and come to realize that you don't have to give them the answers. You have to lead them to their answers. And that was hard for me to understand because I wanted to, in the room, for instance, like in my class, my counsel class, I want to blurt out the answer. And so leadership comes with this extreme sense of self-control, right? Is I can't just give you the answer because then you're not going to do it and you're not going to learn from it. I have to lead you through it and for you to recognize the truth through the process and actually want to move forward with building whatever it is that you're seeking to do. And for myself, I just felt like I always wanted to be the one to fix it and to save you. And I know that that is not what I'm called to do. I'm called to lead you so that you can recognize what you need to do for yourself. And when Mark and I talk about where we were in our marriage in 2019, just this broken down ship that I was ready to sink, I just told Mark came from a place in love, but I said, I want you here. I want to invite you to be a part of what I'm doing, but you cannot come like this. And I'm not saying to change for me. I'm saying to change for you. Choose you. Want something better in life for you and be positive of that. And what was so hard for me is I grew up just certain in myself of knowing I am capable of doing something I don't do, something I don't know. I am capable because I'm determined to figure out how to do it. Just like building the business, building the clientele, building a house, whatever it was, I was capable of doing it because I was certain in that. Mark lived a lot of years uncertain of what he was capable of. But when we sat down and did a self-inventory of, wait a minute, look at all the things that we have been through and they're all part of our story and our journey. But it's another thing to look at it as a testimony of what you are capable of. And it helps you to see or to recognize like certainty in moving forward, what you can do, or having certainty in moving forward in what you can do. And as hard as that conversation was, and it was a season. It was much more than just a one night conversation. It was like months, drawn out months of Mark trying to figure out who he was and what he wanted, and if he was going to go all in to actually get there. And for me, I was all in, and I said, I want you to come alongside me, but only for you. I want you to choose this for you, not for me, not for your kids, not for the businesses, for you. And when we got down to like the nitty and gritty of details and what that looked like for him, he had to start working on himself and in his body, in his being, his relationship with God, his spirituality, in the balance world, in our life as a couple, as a family. What does that look like for you? What did you want, and what were you willing to do to get it? And in business, of course, also. And then as we make this plan for 3 years, God just throws like a big old roadblock, and he's like, nope, you're not going that way. You're going this way. And Mark completely shifted his career path. But I have seen so much growth in you in the last 3 to 4 months, like far beyond anything I feel like we've experienced in our marriage in 17 years. And how crazy that to think we cut ourselves short for 17 years, and this could have been the connections that we had as a couple. And now I want everything times 10. It's like you get a little glimpse or a taste of that, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just scratching the surface. Think of how good the next 17 years can be. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's what I've realized just in the last probably 6 to 8 months of living life. We call it the Warrior's Way, but living the Warrior's Way, it's like a time warp, and they always joke about it. It's like things that you get accomplished in 6 months would usually take you like 4 or 5 years. And that's what I found. This is my first full year of really doing all this, like the fact mapping where you set goals for the year and all that. And we just looked back and it was like, man, like I played this game like 70% in, and I've seen the fruit of it. And so I'm really excited for 2024, taking this ahead with clients. Like, man, like just the clients I've had in the 3 months, what they've been able to accomplish because they've set clear goals, and we have clear expectations of what they need to do. And the greatest part about this coaching thing is they're doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, you're not saving them.
Yeah, we're just guiding. We're just asking questions, doing those things. And I think that's the most fulfilling thing at the end of the day is like, hey, they're doing it. I'm doing it. Bree's doing it. And so no one else is doing the work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark and I went through a really hard time quite a few years ago. God brought to me this beautiful vision, actually. And I just knew in that moment I had to be still in a position where I was almost, just completely debilitated, laying on our couch. And God birthed in through this process, this vision of a place, I don't know where, but a home that was meant to serve women in a way to help them restore, renew, and refresh. And maybe the vision wasn't a physical place, but a mental space, a spiritual space, a place for healing, and that I can offer women a path to lead them to their truth, to help them get to where they want to be. And a lot of times I ask the questions. These are the 3 questions. Who are you? Where are you? And where do you want to go? And 99% of the time, that question cannot be answered in our first meeting. It takes us weeks to unveil that. And I find that to be so powerful and relevant to the vision God gave me, because what I'm trying to create, or what I am creating by going all in, is this movement that is far beyond my hair chair. But a few months ago, I couldn't see it. I could feel it, but I couldn't see it. And as I made the decision that I was no longer doing hair after this year, and I was going all in to lead this movement, I had the most incredible vision come to me as I was driving home. I was on this black stage. Everything was black. And there was 3 stairs leading up to the black stage. And as I gave the go ahead, I don't know what I said, but something that this like army of women walked across the stage in their white blazers, and all of them wearing white blazers with a different texture, a different look, all customized to their own personality, but they were all in white. And I just had chills come over me. Like when you hit your funny bone, that's how I felt over my whole body. And I was like, wow, God, how powerful. And I looked out into the crowd, and it seemed like I was looking at this like really like pixelated picture. Like I couldn't see faces, just dots everywhere. And when I looked out into the crowd, what those dots were the teams that these women led. And I got to lead the team leaders. I got to be a part of that movement that just came over me like so clear that that is what you're meant to do. And if unfortunately you lose people along the way because you're not living your life according to what works for them, I have to go all in and do what God's called me to do and what works for me. And I had to just come to a place of peace of knowing that is the true mission, is to serve women and impact them in a way that I know I've been called to do, and to do it with certainty. The logo, I don't know. The website, I don't know. But what I do know is the calling, and I'm going to go. We're doing it.
Yeah, no, and what's funny about that, I don't think you know this, but that's what our coach Garrett, he's training trainers now, but at the end of next year, he wants to do a conference, but it's all of our teams. And
that's wild.
Get up on stage, speak, do all those kind of things. So that might be 2024.
Watch out.
That might be your November $1 million.
No, my $1 million stylist. I hope that I'm laughing at that goal one day, because I want to blow it out of the water. I love it. Times
20. Yeah. This has been an interesting, 6 months for us since the end of July. Like I said in a podcast a while back, we got called on stage and had a collision with our coach in a good way. He just he framed us up for the last 15 years of our marriage, 16 years of our marriage, and
in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. And what it did for me is it made me see things that were right in front of me. It made me see the pain of my wife, made me see how tired she was. It made me see how I wasn't showing up, how I wasn't rising how I should have, and for my family and for myself especially. And I remember I was crying on stage, screaming, doing all kinds of stuff, and we took a time out and we came back in, and it was just us in the room, and he looks and he brings us over and he said, Mark, like, you have to rise. You have to do what God has called you to do. And that is to change the lives of men because of what God has done for you. And you are more than capable of leading. And that is my biggest thing going to this coaching thing. Like, am I qualified? Like, who am I to lead? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is that everyone has a story. Everyone is qualified to lead by God, not by me, not by my wife, not by your buddies, but like we all have stories. And that's what's really cool about doing this coaching thing too. You start talking to people, and especially friends, and you're like, dude, your testimony is amazing. And most people don't think their lives are like that interesting.
Yeah.
And when you just start talking about it, I'm like, man, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that about your dad. I didn't know that about your mom or your childhood. But everyone has these things that can connect to other people. And that's all that we're here to do in this world, is connect other people for God.
Yeah.
And so how are people supposed to know if you stay silent or you don't tell them everything? And that's been a real interesting thing for us, because our coach set us down and was like, what is sacred means you're lying.
Yeah.
Like, everything is out on the internet now. Everything's out on this camera. And for Bree and I, we were raised, very conservative, and you don't show things, you don't talk about money, you don't, talk about your home and cars, those kind of things. He's like, nope, all of it's out there. And because
said the most powerful man in the room is the man that has nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, put it out there. And that's what Bree and I have been doing. And it doesn't always appeal to our parents. It doesn't appeal to our friends. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I'm not called by them. I'm not called by my wife. I'm called by God. And that's been the big thing for me, is that, am I worthy of doing this? Am I capable of doing this? Like why me? And at the and what I'm learning is, stop asking questions. I'm not asking you guys questions. Just go, Mark, and water what is right in front of you. And so that's what's been so beautiful about this journey in the last 6 months, is that, hey man, like, if I just keep showing up in discipline, keep showing up in my body, keep showing up in my marriage, keep showing up with my kids, then He will provide. And so do not waver.
That's so true. It's been pretty amazing to get to do this together too, in a different state of mind, or a different frame, if you will. than we ever have been in. So that I'm enjoying and loving the most.
Yeah, I mean, we've opened a salon, 2 clothing stores, we bought 3 homes,
Tore them down.
and it was freaking hell.
Yeah.
For most of them, and it was mostly because of me and my insecurities. And so for us, this might be the biggest financial shift we've ever had in our life as of right now, just the season of it. And it's the most connected we've ever been. It's the most peace we've had. And I could say it's because of doing the work every day. And it's what we're coaching. It's what we're preaching. We're not living anything that we don't.
We're not doing.
Yeah. That we're not living anything that we don't do. And so that's what's cool about this too.
Yeah, no, it's been super powerful. How much we have grown and learned in the last few months is insane. So when our clients now tell us, wow, I can't believe I've only done this 2 weeks and I secured more deposits for my business than I did in a month last year or whatever. It's just really awesome to see. Yes, that is how I have felt too. I can't believe what has happened in the last 6 months, and now what they're going to experience in 6 months, and you got to be a part of it is so powerful. So I guess with that comes our call to action to close out this podcast. In our coaching space, it's a virtual experience. We do this on Zoom. You have weekly calls, and our offer is pretty easy. Mark and I serve as a lifeline to our people, and just to tap into that and have someone in your corner is super powerful. And I know for ourselves, being able to confide in our coaches the way that we have has allowed us to make some major decisions, but it doesn't come with a huge drastic consequence or pain. And when you're making any sort of decision like that for your business, and that it really shouldn't feel like that because you're doing what is right and doing what needs to happen or whatever. And sure, with it comes growing pains, but at the same time, it's nothing that's devastating that you're going to lose your home over or whatever. You know, that's what we thought this was going to look like. And for us, it's just live a little differently. Live a little more cautious, and be intentional with your time and with your energy and with your money, which is never something we've been forced to do. Money was easy for us to make. And now in this situation, we're like, well, wait a minute. We don't know what next month's going to look like. But I can tell you thus far, God's provided in ways that I couldn't have even imagined. And just from talking is how you market. We're not marketing anything or trying to sell you something. We're trying to lead you in the way that from the way that we live. And that changes everything. So our call to action in this moment is, I'm sure a lot of the topics that we've talked about today are pain points for a lot of people. And if they're not, you're probably living in a place where you may be lying to yourself. And that is exactly where we were for years, is we lied about, we're fine, I'm fine, it's fine, the business is fine. I was not fine. I was dying inside in a marriage where I felt I couldn't be connected because if I was truly vulnerable and honest, that would hurt Mark. He wouldn't be able to handle it. And that was true.
Yeah.
And then in my business, I'm fine. I'm working till I'm 9.5 months pregnant and going back to work after 12 days of having a C-section. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I missed the whole first year of Selah's life, my middle daughter, because I was in survival mode. And as much as work was an escape, it was so much pain at the same time to be there. I was in so much pain at the same time to be there to miss her life and Matea's life. And I just decided we're not going to live like that anymore. Yeah. And I know a lot of women go through that. The guilt you feel from pursuing the career that is fulfilling all at the same time as it is draining and painful. I know that that's a pain point for women because I was there. And yes, the money was amazing to come home and be like, we can go on a 5-star vacation because mama made this much money. How painful that from the years of 0 months to 1.5 years old, I missed so much of Selah's life and I'll never get that back. And I just refuse to live that way in the future any longer. And I refuse to be in a marriage where I'm not connected and I'm coexisting. I refuse to live in business where you're in survival, like make money, spend money. I don't want to live like that. We don't want to live like that. And we want to lead people through the process to overcome those obstacles, just as we have learned to do. So our call to action would be, send us a message. Yeah. You're not alone.
Yep.
Connect with us. Confide in us, because we've been there and we've done the dang thing. And we have an incredible testimony to share with others of what God has done for us, and give you hope in knowing what he can do for you. And what's amazing is that you get to do the work, and the self-inventory at the end of the day is look at all the things that you have pushed through.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty powerful. So,
and I mean, if you're a guy, I just talked about this last week. If you're a guy that's living in uncertainty, not knowing what you want, you're just trying to get through day by day and sedate, if it's with alcohol, porn, if it's just like pushing things off, like that's not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I did that for years, and I couldn't hear my wife. I couldn't listen to my wife. I couldn't have conversations like this. I couldn't grow. We couldn't grow. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the fruit of being able to live in confidence and live in integrity, stop lying to yourself. And it's so much sweeter. Our marriage is so much better. We were just talking the other day about how connected we are. And I was like, did you ever think we'd be this connected? Mm-hmm. And my wife's like, no, like this is the most connected we've ever been. In 18 years of being together, 17 married. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want for men. That's what I want from married men with kids. Because kids, man, oh my gosh. Talk about like the biggest just blockers of, getting a good
Don't
marriage.
Say it.
Yeah, I would say cock blockers. Cock blockers of marriage. And you have to be super strong as a man to have your marriage go forward with kids, because you have to know what you want. Because if you don't, you'll just go by the wayside and let your kids take over, and then your kids will get older and you'll either cheat on your wife, you'll be divorced, or you'll be unhappy. Mm-hmm. And until the men step up, and that's what I'm realizing, the men have to step up in their marriage and in the household. And they have to take the reins and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's not happening, because that's what God's called, and that's what we need. And that's what women need. They don't need to raise another kid.
It's funny because it's so true. As much as I like to be in control, I want to be led.
Yeah.
I want to feel protected. I want to feel comforted. And when I'm always calling the shots, it almost seemed like there were times where Mark didn't have any ideas or desires for himself. And that's really unattractive. And when you're just like, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever you want to do, that became exhausting to me. I'm like, I'm not going to ask you what you want to do on Saturday, because you're going to give me the same answer of, I don't care, whatever you feel like. I'm going to make a decision for me of what I want to do, and you can be a part of it or not, because I'm sick of asking you to want something and you just don't. Yeah. And that came from a place of living in uncertainty and insecurities and whatever at that time. And it was so negative for us in our household. But as soon as Mark had an idea, I was like so attracted to that. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's take me on a date. I'll go anywhere you want. Yeah. And it just became something that I look forward to when Mark just took the lead and created some direction for me. And as dominant of a person as I am, I still want to be taken care of and led, and have a powerful man to do that. Yeah.
So if you're a man out there that you're like, man, I need that, hit me up. You can message us here on YouTube, or if you want to do on Instagram, Mark Gentry Training, at Mark Gentry Training, or at Blonde by Bree. If you're a female that you're in business and you're burnt out and you're just like, my gosh, like, is this ever going to get better? Hit us up. And then if you are listening to this on the podcast, subscribe, please. Hit a like for us. That would help out a lot. And on YouTube too, also subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap on episode
13.
Lucky number 13. Until next time, life in abundance with the Gentrys. We're out.